Today I'll teach you how you can elevate your laser cut projects with epoxy resin. So this wasn't included in the tutorial, but I do have another tutorial on how to make these little shakers. The tree file and the ornament, not the Fairy Light box, are available for free, so you can test this out for yourself. These are the materials that you are going to need to make your resin projects, and this is a little sneak peek of the projects that I will be making. But safety first, make sure that you are wearing a respiratory mask. And I am saying this because resin is toxic. You can get lung diseases, you can get trouble with breathing, you can get headaches. Always wear a respiratory mask. Also gloves, because you don't want the resin to touch your skin. With that said, you might also want to take on some old clothes, because you might risk getting resin on your clothes and it's hard to get off. So, next thing, you definitely need resin. This is from Art and Glow, and this is not supposed to be yellow. If you don't handle or store your epoxy correct and it is exposed to too much light, it will turn yellow. So you want clear resin, but since I'll be dyeing in all my resin, I don't mind that it's yellow because dye will cover the yellowness. But if I wanted to make a clear coat, I would obviously use my actual resin that was stored correct. And this is resin, this is hardener. Sometimes you might see it as A and B, which is the same. So it's two components, resin or epoxy resin. Besides resin, you want something to mix it in, and with, I'm just using disposable cups and these sticks that I found somewhere. I don't even remember where I found them. You can use silicone cups as well if you prefer. That's entirely up to you. For the ornaments, you want to cover the back with tape, and you can use resin tape, which is this one. It's specifically designed to this purpose, but you can also use package tape. You can even use painter's tape. So it's really up to you what type of tape you prefer. Once you have masked your back on the ornament, you will need to dye in your resin, and you can either use resin dye. This is alcohol ink. Everything that I'm showing you here is linked in the description. Maybe not the exact thing that I'm using, but at least something similar. You could also use this mica powder or soap dye, and optionally a ton of glitter. I have fine glitter, I have this more speckled glitter, I have a ton of glitter that I'll be using. To apply, I recommend using silicone brushes, because once your epoxy or your resin is cured, you can just peel off the excess. For getting inside the edges, you do want toothpicks. These are also handy when it comes to bursting bubbles. And talking about bursting bubbles, you want to use a heat gun, hot air gun, or a torch. You could maybe also use a lighter. I'm not sure. I use lighters for my UV resin, but I haven't actually used a lighter for my epoxy, since I always use my hot air gun. But you want some heat that can burst the bubbles. Also, a really great thing is to get a silicone mat to place it all on top of. That way you can also peel off the resin once it's cured, and you can start new. To prepare your ornaments for the resin, you want to mask the backside of it. I'm using UV resin tape for this one. You can, as I said, use painter's tape or clear package tape or something else. If you have a piece of tape that is wide enough to cover the entire back, that is perfect. Mine isn't that wide, so I will be overlapping my pieces, which in the end will result in a fine line where the gap from the tape is. So if you can find tape wider than the one I'm using here, that's definitely preferable. Before you go on with the resin, make sure that you are wearing gloves and your respiratory mask. To mix the epoxy resin, you pour an equal part of A and B, the hardener and the resin, and you want to stir these for about 3 to 5 minutes in a slow pace, just to make sure that everything is mixed perfectly well together. Once you have them mixed, you pour your resin into smaller cups, and you can then add your dye or your mica powder and your glitter and whatever you want. Mine is yellow because my hardener was exposed to too much light, but it's okay because once I have the color in it, it doesn't show. It's totally up to you which colors you want to use, if you want to add glitter or not, and also how solid a color you want. The more dye you put in it or mica powder, the more solid the color will be. I want mine to be see-through or transparent, since I will be using these for lights. Before you start pouring, make sure that your ornaments are attached to the tape. So go ahead and poke them down and make sure that they are snug sitting on the tape, because otherwise you might have resin flowing underneath the frame. Once in place, you simply grab your colors, give them a nice little swirl so you're sure that the glitter and the color is everywhere, and you just pour it down to your shape. Be careful if you are used to working with UV resin. Epoxy resin is way more liquid, so you want to be careful when you're pouring it in, that you don't pour in too much. Also, if you just pour it in the middle, it is self-leveling and it should go to the sides, but you still want to help it just a little by using a silicone tool or your toothpick or something else. Make sure you get it into all the corners, and you could burst the bubbles by using a heat gun between each layer. I will wait until I have all my colors in my ornament, and then I will use my heat gun to get all those bubbles out. If you accidentally make a drop of another color where it's not supposed to be, you can remove it with your silicone tool or a baby wipe or something else. Just keep in mind that your ornament is sitting on tape, so you don't want to have some dust or anything on the tape, so be careful if you're removing excess resin. I do recommend that you use your silicone tool for this. For all your corners and the smaller space, use a toothpick to go around all the edges and corners to make sure that it is sticking to all corners and edges. The outer ring of the round ornament is a little hard to get to, so for this I am using my pipettes, and I'm just carefully going in and adding my, it's yellow with gold glitter, adding my gold with the pipettes, and I'm then using a toothpick to move it around and get it into all corners of these edges. Last but not least, I need to color in my stem. So I left some of my resin in the cups because I knew that I would mix this brown color at last. So for the brown, I'm using mica powder. So this will not be as transparent as the green, red and yellow that I have, but that's okay because it's only at the stem and I didn't have any resin dye that was brown. Once you're done, you take your heat gun or a torch. You could also use a lighter, but I don't really recommend that for the epoxy resin. I do recommend a heat source of some kind, and I prefer to use this little heating tool to remove all the bubbles. For epoxy resin, you might not have as many bubbles as you do with UV resin, but they will be there still. So give it a nice blow and then you just keep them aside in a dust-free environment, because if you get dust into your resin, it will be stuck. And epoxy resin needs to cure for 24 hours. So you have to be patient when you're working with epoxy resin. It is faster to process, but it takes a long time to cure. And a little extra tip, if you have some leftover resin, use a mold of some type. I am just using this alphabet molds that I have. I use these letters for keychains. So you can make a couple of cute keychains with your excess resin and you don't have any waste. Once your resin is dry, it's time to reveal the results. So carefully remove the tape. You want this type of resin to cure for 24 hours. Mine hasn't cured for 24. I think they cured for about 16 hours or so. But this is a thin layer, so it is fully cured and you can feel that by touching it. And unlike the UV resin, I actually think that this will look great on both sides without me having to do any extra work. And the tape can be a little hard to get up. So I didn't do anything on the back of these, so this is just as is, but the front is gorgeous as crazy. So let's just see how this one will look. I'll just remove this one and add it to my little test base. And would you look at this? I love it. So this one I'll be making a separate video for. The trees, you could make single layered like they are now. And you do see that some of the tape are coming with. That's not so good, but if you use isopropyl alcohol, I think I said it correct this time, you can wipe it over and get this off. But since I knew that my backers wouldn't be pretty on these ones, I decided to make 2, and then I'll be able to glue these together. And I have gorgeous little tree ornament. Also, I had my little leftover projects that I added to my alphabet molds and a little keychain thing. I did the same with UV resin, and it wasn't actually fully cured, so I had to cure that again, even though it had been sitting for 24 hours. But demolding the epoxy resin is really easy. You can just snap them directly out of the silicone molds and you have a almost immediately gorgeous result. So all in all, I do like to work with the epoxy resin better than I like the UV resin. The UV resin takes up so much more than the epoxy resin does, and you don't have the same amount of bubbles with epoxy resin as you do with UV resin. So for bigger projects, I would advise using the epoxy resin. For smaller stuff like earrings, keychains and such, UV resin is a great match, and you can enhance really many things with the UV resin. But for this, it's just my opinion, I would go for the epoxy resin. So what do you think? Please drop a comment below. I do have more tutorials on my page on how to make these ornaments. I also have one of using acetate sheets. I have one for the UV resin, and I will have more coming up because I am arranging a little contest on finishing these as you want them to look. So if you want to know more about that, please subscribe to my channel, give this video a like, and I hope to see you soon.